Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, in this lesson, we're going to start speaking about al-fa'il. Al-fa'il, in a very brief sense, is one of the 7 different types of nouns that are going to be marfu' in the Arabic language. So it's going to end with a dhamma at the end or one of its substitutes. And it is the one who's doing the action in a verbal sentence. So when you have a verbal sentence, you have a verb, of course. Ja'a, he came. Dhahaba, he went, for example. And every time you have a verb, there's somebody or there's something that is doing that verb. There's somebody who's actually enacting that action that the verb is indicating. So when I say ذهب, he went, the one doing the action is he, huwa. And when I say ذهب محمد, the one doing the action of going is Muhammad. ذهب محمد, Muhammad went. Who did the action of going? Muhammad, so Muhammad's the fa'il. So the fa'il in a very brief sense is the one who does the action in a verbal sentence. And a more, grammar-based definition is the ism al-marfu' al-madhkur qablahu fi'luhu. The fa'il is a ism that's marfu'. First and foremost, it's the ism, never harf and never verb. Al-marfu', that is marfu', meaning that it ends with a dhamma or one of its substitutes. Al-madhkur qablahu fi'luhu, al-madhkur mentioned, qablahu before it, yani before the fa'il is mentioned, fi'luhu its verb. So الاسم مرفوع is the ism that's مرفوع المذكور قبله mentioned before it فعله is its verb يعني mentioned before the فاعل is the verb of the فاعل. Now this verb that's being mentioned before the فاعل, before the one that actually did the verb itself, is either going to be مباشرة or غير مباشرة. مباشرة means that it's directly mentioned before it. The فعل, the verb of the fa'il, the verb of the one doing the action, is mentioned directly before it. Like in the verse, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ, when the help of Allah comes. So, جَاء is a verb. Who's the one who did the action of جَاء, of coming? نصر. Why? Because نصر is an ism. It's مرفوع. نصر. مذكور قبله فعله. Mentioned before it is its verb, which is جَاء. Not only is it mentioned before it, but it's mentioned مباشرة, directly before it. So sometimes the verb that's mentioned before the fa'il is going to be mentioned مباشرة, directly before it. And sometimes it's going to be mentioned غير مباشرة, not directly before it. So here is directly mentioned before it, but غير مباشرة, for example, is when we see in the verse وَلَقَدْ جَاءَ آلَ فِرْعَوْنَ النُّذُرُ. وَلَقَدْ, and verily came, جَاءَ, and verily, جَاءَ came, آلَ فِرْعَوْنَ, the people or the family of Fir'aun, and Nudhur, the warnings. Yani verily came to the family of Fir'aun and Nudhur, the warnings. So when you see this verse, someone can say that ala is the fa'il. Someone could say that ala is the fa'il. But that wouldn't be correct. Why? Because ala is an ism, yes. And right before it is mentioned the verb, yes. So al-madhkuru qablahu fi'luhu, but it's missing one of the things here, which is al-marfu'. It's not marfu'. So ana is an ism, yes. It is mentioned before its verb in a sense, but it's not marfu'. It's not marfu'. It's mansub, so it cannot be the fa'il. So ana cannot be the one who's doing the action of ja'a, cannot be the fa'il. Rather, we need to keep going down to find an-nudhuru. An-nudhuru fulfills the conditions. It's an ism. It's marfu' ends for dhamma, and مذكور قبله فعله, mentioned before it is its verb, which is ja'a. So nudhur is the fa'il. So that's how I know that the meaning of this verse is verily came to the family of Fir'aun and nudhuru, the warnings. So here and nudhuru, its verb is mentioned غير مباشرة, not directly before it. Rather, there's ad of Fir'aun coming between them. So the fa'il is this in a very brief sense. Now, second point we want to cover is that the fa'il can either be a dhamir, a pronoun, or a ism zahir, an apparent noun. Ism zahir is like Muhammad, Baytun, Sayara, Aishatu, Khalid, Ahmadu. It's an ism that's zahir. It's an ism that is very clear and it's not a pronoun pretty much. ذهب محمد, Muhammad went. Muhammadun is an ism that's مرفوع. Muhammadun. المذكور قبله فعله, mentioned مباشرة, right before it is the verb, its verb, which is ذهب. But sometimes the fa'il can come as a dhamir, can come as a pronoun, can come as a pronoun. So for example, when I say dhahabtu means I went. So who's the one doing the action of going to, which is the dhamir representing ana, representing I. So to here is the fa'il. To here is the fa'il. So the ضمير, the pronoun, can sometimes come as the fa'il for a verb. Obviously, the pronoun here too is not مرفوع with the i'rab al-lafzi, but rather it's مرفوع with al-i'rab al-mahalli, which we covered before. So ذهبت here, the fa'il here is a ضمير, which is to. So sometimes the fa'il can either be an ism ظاهر or a ضمير. When it's a ضمير, it can sometimes be a ضمير, a pronoun that is mustatirun, hidden, or bariz, apparent. So the ضمير as a fa'il is of two categories. Bariz means that it is apparent and articulated. And it's apparent and articulated and it's attached to the back of the verb. While mustatiru means that the fa'il is going to be a ضمير, is going to be a pronoun, but that pronoun is going to be mustatirun, hidden. Mustatiru means hidden. So bariz means is a de facto situation, and it's that the pronoun will be attached to the end of the verb, like we saw here. The pronoun will be attached to the end of the verb, tu, ta, tum, and so on and so forth. And thus it will be apparent and articulated. So يذهبون, the ضمير coming as a fa'il is the waw. It's apparent and articulated, and it's attached to the back of the verb. ذهبوا, same concept, it's the waw here. ذهبتن, it's tunna here, which is apparent, articulated, and attached to the back of the verb, so it's a baris. ذهبنا, same principle. تذهبين, same principle. ذهبت, same principles. So the ضمير coming as a fa'il will always be attached to the end of the verb if it's baris. If it's not attached to the end of the verb, like here in blue, then it's always going to be mustatirun. Mustatirun means hidden. When it's mustatirun, it can either be mustatirun, or certain pronouns will be mustatirun in the past tense verb. Another set of pronouns are going to be mustatirun in the mudari', and another set of pronouns are going to be mustatirun in the amr. Excluding these few scenarios here, the pronoun will always be baris. That's why it's a de facto situation. So mustatirun, hidden, in the past tense is only with two pronouns, huwa and hiya. With all the pronouns, it is baris in the past tense. So huwa, when I say dhahaba means he went. Where's huwa in dhahaba? It's mustatirun, it's hidden. Hiya, dhahabat, same principles. Where's hiya in dhahabat? It's hidden. The ta that you see at the end of dhahabat is not the fa'il. It's not the ضمير. It's not the pronoun coming as a fa'il, but rather it's just ta ta'nif. It's the ta to show that the verb is in the feminine form. Instead of dhahaba, it's just to show you that dhahabat, the ta there is to show you that it's in the feminine version of dhahaba, which is hiya yani. So it's not, the ta there is not the pronoun. So huwa means he went, hiya means she went, or dhahaba means he went, dhahabat means she went. And these are the two scenarios in the past tense where the pronoun is going to be mustatirun. And the mudari', it's a few more scenarios. Huwa and hiya, same thing. Yadhabu, tadhabu, yadhabu, he's going, tadhabu, you are going, feminine. Or she is going, sorry, feminine. Tadhabu, she is going, feminine. In these two scenarios, the ضمير, which is huwa or hiya, coming as a fa'il is mustatirun, is hidden. It's not the ya that you see at the beginning, and it's not the ta that you see at the beginning, but rather it's mustatirun. Anta, anta tadhabu, so both anta and hiya in the mudari' is the same form. Tadhabu, tadhabu. So tadhabu can mean you are going or she is going, depending on the context. So tadhabu, you are going, masculine. Where is anta in tadhabu? It's mustatirun, it's hidden. The ta there is not anta, but rather the ta and the ya and the hamza that you see here and the noon that you see here, those are all called huruf and mudari', which are pretty much just letters that are coming to show that the noun is in the mudari' form, but it's not the pronoun. Ana and nahnu, adhabu, nadhabu, both scenarios, the pronoun ana and the pronoun nahnu coming as a fa'il is mustatirun, is hidden. So that is in the mudari'. These are the 5 different scenarios where the pronoun is going to be mustatirun. In all other scenarios, the ضمير, the pronoun coming as a fa'il is baris. So yadhabuna, for example, tadhabina, for example. In these 2 scenarios, in all the scenarios excluding these ones here, the pronoun is apparent, baris. Then al-amr, in the verb of command, we have anta. So for example, when I say idhab, I'm commanding somebody to go. Where is the ضمير anta coming as the fa'il in idhab? It's mustatirun, it's hidden. But in all other scenarios, it's not going to be hidden. Like, for example, if I say idhabi, the ya there is the pronoun and it's not mustatirun. So, inshallah, this is fairly clear. So, the most important thing to remember is that the fa'il is the ism that's marfu', madhkurun qablahu fi'luhu, mentioned before it is its verb. Sometimes its verb will be mentioned directly before it, ja'a nasrullah. Sometimes it will be mentioned a bit afterwards. And the pronoun, the fa'il itself, The fa'al itself can sometimes be ism al-zahir, which is usually the case, and sometimes it can be a damir, a pronoun. Sometimes that pronoun will be mustatirun, will be hidden, and sometimes it's going to be bariz. I hope this was clear.